Welcome everyone to my how-to video on writing your proposal for assignment 7015. Okay, so let's check in where we are within the process of the two group projects. So if you scroll down to week 5 and click on the workflow diagram, this page pops up. So we have completed all of 7014 at this point and submitted that. We have completed the first part of 7015, which is the internal communication in which you pretend to be Alex Nostrovia, and you should have taken that through the peer review process. And now you are ready to write your proposal. So you are switching roles again. So you are no longer Alex Nostrovia. You have, let's pretend at this point, Alex Nostrovia has accepted your project plan. You are now assigned to respond to the request for proposal that you created in 7014 with a proposal. Okay, so the challenge and the business that you selected here, you are going to be trying to solve that challenge by proposing a product or service that you want the business to purchase from you. Okay, so basically this proposal is kind of like a product pitch. You aren't just giving them ideas, that's really important. You are trying to advertise your services at Mega Consulting Group and trying to convince the business that you selected up here that your services at Mega Consulting Group are the best solution to their challenge. Okay, so that's what the proposal is all about. Okay, so let's just remind ourselves a little bit of what the wiki expects from us in our proposal. Okay, now this is the part that's going to be a little different. You are being asked to write this in a business letter format. So just keep that in mind. It should look like a business letter written from Mega Consulting Group. Okay, but this is going to be pretty lengthy. So this is probably going to be the longest letter that you have written. So that means you should have section headings to help break up all of that text. Okay, so you don't have a lot of guidance here in terms of structure and order. It just basically tells you to describe the goods or services that you are trying to sell to the business to solve their challenge. And using it as a sales tool. Okay, so to help you with this, I have created a guide for your structure. Okay, so if you flip over to week 7 in our course Moodle and you scroll down to the first 7015 submission deadline, all of our materials for 7015 are under that first submission deadline. So this is what you're going to need to look at for today. The proposal structure. So this is a journal entry in which your group is going to tell me what structure you're going to create, because I'm not going to dictate the entire structure. So this Word document here is the guide that I'm going to show you, and here are several examples. So if you open up this file, there are several PDFs that are examples. Now keep in mind that these proposal samples are written in the proposal format. So they will not look like letters. They won't look like what you're going to create. Okay, so I'll explain more about that. So the first thing I'm going to do is open up this 7015 proposal structure guide, this Word document here, and this is what is going to pop up. Okay, so it kind of just walks you through the process. So this is what's going to happen. I am dictating to you part of your structure. So there are 3 sections that most proposals out there all have. And that is a clear description of your deliverables. That's the products or services you're trying to sell to the business to solve their challenge. I'm also asking that everyone demonstrate that these deliverables will meet the goals and requirements that are listed in the request for proposal. And then you also need a section proving that there will be benefits if this business takes on the solution. Now, this third section is going to be difficult because, you know, Mega Consulting Group is not a real business, so you can't do any primary research about what Mega Consulting Group has done in the past. However, you can do secondary research on studies looking at similar businesses to the one you selected. So if you're doing Espresso Royale, for example, if you're doing CAMS or something, you can do secondary research on case studies of, say, how bars have benefited after they've applied a similar solution, or how coffee shops have benefited after applying a similar solution. Okay, so that's what you'd be looking for, is someone else who has done that kind of primary research and put it into an article for you. Okay, so these are the three sections that I want to see in everybody's proposals, but you have other goals here. You need to make sure that your structure is conventional. That means that the sections you include are expected and they're in an expected order. So that's what all the examples are for. So you should be able to take a look at those examples and see, like, okay, what order do they progress in? What kind of sections are typical? Because you are going to have to, as a group, select 2 to 3 other sections. So 2 at minimum. It's okay if you go over 3, but 2 or 3 other sections of text to add to the 3 I've already dictated. And then, of course, you need to have appropriate content framing. So you will not have a title page and you will not have a table of contents because this is going to be written as a letter. But you will need to have a reference page if your citation method calls for it. You will need to have citation. Again, I don't care what citation method you use as long as it's accurate, consistent. And so some of the styles call for a reference page or a works cited page, others do not. For things like this, I think Chicago works really great, but if you choose MLA or APA, make sure you apply them correctly, including in-text citations. You may or may not have appendixes. If you do, that's great. Charts and graphs are also going to be great if you do any primary research, but again, you may not find that they're necessary, especially since this is a business letter and not a proposal format. You're definitely going to need section headings, and I think you're probably going to need page numbers for this one. All right, so those are the structural goals that I'm giving you. So this is kind of a first step towards, you know, complete independence. So up to this point, your structure has been pretty much given to you. Now I'm just going to give you some of the key sections, and the rest of it you need to use your judgment for. So that's what this journal entry task is about. So if we switch over to Moodle again, all right, we zoom up. So right here, this is a journal entry, and one person from your group needs to write this. And basically what it asks you to do, if I open this up, is to just tell me what your group chose to do with your structure. Okay, so it gives you the instructions here. So you should first outline the structure your group chose, so what sections and in what order. Okay, so list them in the order you're going to have them in the proposal. Then I want you to tell me just quickly why your group chose the sections that you chose, why you chose not to include others, and why you put them in the order that you did. So remember that this is a journal entry, so you don't need to do opening, middle, and closing and all that. Just give me the information. All right, so if we return to our guide, this gives us a little bit more information about what our options are, okay? So what I've listed down here is all of the examples that you have in Moodle. So this file folder here has a whole bunch of PDFs in them with all these examples of proposals. And what I've basically done is looked at the sections for those examples, and I've put them in outlines for you. So this is just a quick way to look at what sections there are. So remember, we're not doing title pages and tables of content. So you get a quick idea of the sections and the order of the sections for 7 examples, okay? And if you notice that they are labeled, so if it's a general, you're not going to find an example of that. It's just a general structure. But if it has a title next to it, that tells you which example it's based on. So you can look at the outline and then go look at the example that it's based on to see what the content is all about. So these two last ones here, the one that says how to overcome retail customer erosion, this is actually a white paper, but it's doing the job very similar to the kind of proposal you're creating. And white papers, the ones that you can find online for free anyways, are a lot more in the range of our length. So these are only 8 and 10 pages, but you'll see that the proposal examples are hundreds of pages long. You're not going to write them that long. First of all, because you don't have that much information to work off of. But it kind of just gives you different ideas of structure. So all of these, in terms of their structure, their content, and their order, have appropriate content for the kind of proposals you're going to be creating. Okay. All right. So that's what you can do. As a group, just go through here, take a look at what other sections are available to you, discuss as a group what other 2 or 3 sections you'd like to add to flesh out your structure and make it convincing. So for example, if I made a list of these things, so here are 3 required sections, but there are a whole bunch of sections that just by looking at those sample outlines that we are given. So here is a bunch of other sections just looking at the outlines that I came up with, okay? And all of these would be fine as additions. Now, if you want to add a different kind of section that isn't listed here, go for it if you think it'll be useful to your reader, because remember that your desired consequence is to make the sale. Okay, you are trying to convince the business that you selected to purchase your services, to work with Mega Consulting. So you should add the sections that you think would be most effective to guiding your reader to that desired consequence. Okay, so giving them the information they need when they need it to feel convinced. All right. Okay, so that's what I would recommend doing. And so once your group has decided what sections you want to include and in what order, then you should have task 1 person with submitting that journal entry for your group. That way I get an idea of why you chose those sections, and that will inform my grading of your proposal. If you don't tell me why you chose those sections, I might think that they don't belong there. Okay, so show me your reasoning, and then I can grade you on whether I think that reasoning is being executed effectively. Okay, all right. So basically, once you have finished outlining your structure, and you should then go about executing your project plan. So you should research all the content that you need. All right, so basically at that point, you are ready to create your research plan. So you have your sections. So each section would have a research question. So let's pretend like your first section was a restatement of the problem or the challenge. So you would have some research questions like, how do I know they have this problem or this challenge? How do I know the business has this problem? And then how do I know it harms their profits, because that's what really harms a business. Okay, so those would be my 2 research questions for that section. And then I would go about finding primary and secondary research that would help me answer those questions. And once I have that information and that research, I am ready to draft. Okay, so I created a worksheet for basically going through this research process back for 7009. So you're welcome to use that and repurpose it for creating a research plan for this project as well. But it's basically asking you, what are the questions I need to answer for this section? How do I go about finding answers? Go find the answers in your research, and then your premises will equal the answers to those questions, okay? And here's what's most important. Your answers should be based on evidence. not what you feel is true or think is true or believe is true. You need to be able to prove those things with evidence. So to be objective, we should base our answers on objectives instead base our answers on evidence as opposed to trying to find evidence that fits our preconceptions, okay? Because if you base your research, base your drafts, your premises on your opinions, and then what that does is often that comes out in the draft, and I can tell that there's insufficient evidence, and it's just not going to be effective. I'm not going to believe it. You're not going to make your sale. So what will I grade for? Logos. Okay, so that's that PEC order, having a premise that you prove with sufficient evidence that you lead to a concluding sentence. And remember that your concluding sentence of a body paragraph connects the topic of that paragraph to your overall purpose. So our overall purpose of your proposal is your desired consequence. And so our desired consequence is that they buy our product or service. So at the end of this paragraph where I prove that they have a problem with cleanliness, and that having a problem with cleanliness means that we take in fewer new customers or repeat business, then at the end of that paragraph I would say, unless we fix this problem, we are continuously losing out on more business. And that is my concluding sentence, okay? You telling your reader why this matters, okay? All right, so I will be grading very heavily for logos. I will be grading for, do I think, like in a common sense way, that you are succeeding at your desired consequence? If I feel like I am unconvinced, either because there's a section missing that is really needed, or the arguments are not relevant, or the evidence is ineffective, any of those reasons may result in a failure to make the sale. So I'll be checking to see what's harming your ability to obtain your desired consequence. So those are the higher level things. The rest will be style, citation, format, and visual design. So that sort of thing. But these are the top two things I will be checking for. Okay? All right. So once you have finished drafting, then you're ready for the peer review process. Okay? So at this point in our workflow diagram, you would have created your proposal. So that's done. Now you're ready to get peer review advice. So you need to create a peer review request memo and send your draft and that request memo to 2 other groups. And to find out who those groups are, you just come over here to Moodle, and under week 5, that's where your Word document listing your groups. I'm not going to open it, but right next to your group number, it will tell you which groups to send it to. So just email the draft and your peer review request memo to the group manager of those groups. Okay, so once you email the 2 requests, so you've drafted, you have emailed your proposal with a peer review request memo to 2 groups. You should then receive 2 requests, and then you should respond to those requests with a peer review reply memo. So you're creating 2 memos, 1 to each group. Email them back. Okay, so once you email your responses back to those groups' proposal drafts, you should also receive advice from 2 groups in the form of memos. Okay, so once you get that advice back, okay, you're ready to revise your proposal. Okay, so here's what happens next. You have 2 submission deadlines for 7015. The first one is all your peer review documents. So if we look over in Moodle, under week 7, the first submission is 7015 proposal, group project, peer response completion packet. So if we look over at the wiki page, it describes everything that you're submitting for that. Yeah, so these are all the tasks, but what you'll find out by looking at this page and looking at the wiki page is that you are submitting here a draft of your internal communication, a draft of your proposal, and the peer review request and peer review response memos that go along with them. Okay, so this is all first draft and the peer review, peer response, peer reply memos that you have written. So that's one deadline. So basically, oops, I have to scroll down a little bit farther. There we go. Okay. So basically, at this point here, you can submit 7015 PR, okay? And that consists of everything in purple that came before it. So your internal communication draft, your request for peer review, your reply, so your 2 responses to other groups with peer review, your draft of the proposal, your memo requesting peer review of your proposal, your 2 responses to 2 other groups' proposal, and then you submit to 7015 PR, okay? All right, so that is it. That's the proposal part. I will have more materials on the remainder of this project. You will also need to create a slideshow, so I'll be giving you some guidance on that. And that's it. You're almost done. Good luck, everybody.